Welcome to Carly Tackle's Kitchen Cabinets, Part 5, Making the Drawers. To start, we need to measure our height and width that our drawers will be. So I'm measuring the opening, and typically you want at least an inch less than your opening. This top opening is 5 inches tall, so I can make the drawers 4 inches tall or less. Next, I pulled out the slides a little bit and I'm measuring the width. The width will be the length of your front and back piece. The length of your side pieces will be determined by the length of your drawer slide. Using my DeWalt table saw, I am cutting the strips of plywood down to its height. So I'm cutting a few 4-inch strips, and then I also had some taller drawers below that I'll cut to 5-inch strips. For these drawers, I'm using 3/4 inch plywood grade A. A lot of people will recommend using Baltic birch. That was a little outside of my price range. Now that we cut the plywood into strips, we can now cut them to the length of our drawers. Remember, the front and back pieces will be measured to the length of your width of your drawer slides, and the side pieces will be cut to the length of your drawer slides. I am using my Bosch 10-inch miter saw to make these cuts. We're going to cut a groove into all of our pieces for our bottom panel. Pick the nice side that you want inside of your drawer and place it down. You really won't see the outsides of the drawers much, only on the sides. I have the fence on my table saw set to 1/2 inch. The blade height is set to 1/4 inch. I'm using a Kreg multi-mark tool to check the depth of my groove to make sure it is 1/4 inch. Once you have the depth set correctly, run all the pieces through. Make sure the good side is down for your drawers. The bottom panel is a 1/4 inch maple. Now we all know that a 1/4 inch does not always mean a 1/4 inch. My saw blade is 1/8 inch, and instead of using a 1/4 inch dado, I am moving the fence slightly to cut a bigger groove and then testing each strip to make sure it's right. So I have a scrap piece of maple there, and as you can see, I'm doing a few passes to make sure I get it right. And it's still a little snug yet, so I'm going to move my fence out slightly and take another pass. As soon as you have your fence calibrated with the test piece, now you can cut all the remaining pieces of your drawers for the second time. If your drawer material is a tad too thick, like I'm using 3/4 inch plywood instead of 5/8 plywood, it will cause my drawers to stick out past the face frame. I had this idea to use my router table to remove some of the thickness on my front facing drawer. Placing the inside down on the router, we are going to make 2 passes, 1 on each end. Now I marked my table router with blue paint tape so I know when to stop. I need to cut the groove long enough that the drawer connector fits, just like that. When doing the other side, I need to run the board opposite of the way you're supposed to when using a router. Be very careful doing this. There's a lot of rules and exceptions to those rules of doing it this way. The router blade can catch the wood and throw it. Now we need to cut out a groove in the back piece of the drawer, and this is for the drawer slides to go through the drawer. I measured about 1 inch in and 1/2 inch up, so I'm cutting to the groove that we put into it. And when all said and done, your back piece will look like this. It is a lot easier to sand the inside of your drawers before you assemble them. When I sand these drawers, I have 80 grit on my Ryobi Orbital sander. Then I vacuum my piece and get all of the dust. And then I take my hand sanding block, which has 150 grit sandpaper, and sand it with that. And then I take the vacuum with the brush attachment again and vacuum up all of the loose dust that may have come from sanding. And then I finish it off with 220 sandpaper and vacuum it for a third time. When sanding, it's important to vacuum and clean up after each time. Otherwise, when you're sanding, you're just taking your sawdust and pushing it into the grain of your wood, leaving scratches and sometimes circular marks on your piece. This is my quarter sheet of maple that we will be using for the bottom panel of our drawers. I'm using my DeWalt table saw to cut them down to size. Next, I'm using my miter saw to cut them down to fit the drawers. Now you can also use a circular saw. Because this is too long a board and I have to flip, I am cutting this piece a little bit bigger than I need to. The reason is you can mess up your grooves when you do the saw. It may not be 100% straight, and I don't trust it to be pretty. So when I'm done, I'm going to take it to my table saw and set that table saw to the actual dimension that I need and run it through and clean up the edges so everything is square. Next, I'm doing a dry fit with all my pieces to make sure everything lines up and it's pretty. So I got my front piece that I'm attaching, and then I'll place the back on the other side, and if everything looks good, I'll grab the glue. Be careful with the glue. If you're using hardwood for your paneling, you don't want to get any glue on the panel. You want it to float because wood will expand. Now there are some materials, like I think poplar may be one of them, where you can go ahead and glue it in place because it doesn't expand. To be on the safe side, I wouldn't glue it and let it float. Once you have your side pieces set down, you can use a brad nailer and fire in a few nails, and that will help it attach. Now notice that we're nailing in from the sides. You pull a drawer from the front, and because we're nailing the opposite of that pull, they should never come out. Once you're finished with the one side, flip it over and apply your glue and repeat the steps. You want to make sure that your pieces are flush, so you can see that I'm kind of checking that with my fingers, make sure it's all lined up before I grab the nailer and nail it into place. Flip your drawer upside down so the bottom is facing up. And now we're going to attach the drawer brackets to your front board. Now the back boards have the two notches cut out, so you shouldn't mix those up, and place them. The orange on these, the triggers, go inside facing each other. We are almost done with the drawer assembly piece. On the drawer slides in the back are two little stick out tabs that want to go into your drawer. We need to drill holes in the drawer where those notches will go. A trick that I learned from Bourbon Moth Woodworking, make sure you check out the links to that video in the video description, is to put the drawer in and bang it a few times against the back. Now I'm being a little overzealous with that, but you can kind of see there the little marks and indentions that get placed on the back. And now you know exactly where to drill. Using a 1/4 inch drill bit, we are going to place a blue paint tape 1/2 inch deep. Remember, we have 3/4 inch material. We don't want to go all the way through, but we do want to go 1/2 inch deep. So you can measure it like that, apply some blue paint tape. And when you drill, you want to stop when your blue paint tape touches the board. And now you have your holes. So let's put the drawer back in and make sure everything works. Now these are the 7/8 extension drawer slides, so these drawers won't come out fully. They'll only come out 7/8, which is still plenty. After I was satisfied with the fit, I sanded the outside of the box, repeating the same steps that I did for inside, shaved off a little bit of the corners, and I applied linseed oil to it. That's why it's a little bit yellower, and that should help protect it. Now that all of my drawers have been built, sanded, and linseed oil applied, it's time to put them on their drawer slides. And for this cabinet, I made multiple size drawers. They're all different heights. Thanks for watching Carly Tackles Kitchen Cabinets Part 5, Making the Drawers. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you'd like to see more like this video and more in this series, please subscribe to my channel, Carly Tackles DIY, Tools and Gadgets, Tips and Tricks. Make sure you hit the bell to get notifications when I release new content. Thank you.